I think, there we go, wonderful. Hi everyone, I'm thrilled to see you all today at this learning circle. My name is Haley Froese and I'm the Program Officer of Alumni Engagement at the Mozilla Foundation. And I'm only going to speak briefly because there are some incredible speakers that we have with us today and I want to make sure we have lots of time to hear from them. But I will start by introducing Petra Molnar, who many of you will know, but Petra is a lawyer and anthropologist specializing in migration and human rights. She is the co-creator of the Migration and Technology Monitor, which you will hear much more about shortly. She's also the associate director of the Refugee Law Lab at York University and a faculty associate and former fellow at the Berkman Klein Center for Internet and Society at Harvard University. She also has a long-standing relationship with Mozilla. She was a 2020 Mozilla Open Web Fellow and is a current Alumni Connection Grant awardee. So these grants are awarded to alumni of Mozilla's fellowship and awards programs and support projects that embrace the theme of connection. So connection to fellow alumni and the broader community, and connection of their work to the broader world and movement for trustworthy AI and an open and accessible internet. This learning circle that we're having here today is part of the work Petra is doing in her Alumni Connection Grant, as well as being part of a much bigger body of work with the Migration and Technology Monitor. I'm thrilled that Mozilla is able to support her in this work, and I'm very excited to see all the folks joining today to learn more and to engage. So without further ado, I will pass it off to Petra. I just want to welcome everyone. Thank you all for coming. And I'm really thrilled to hear more about who else we'll be hearing from and learning with today. So Petra, thank you.
Thank you so much, Haley, and thanks to the Mozilla community for having us today. It's a real pleasure to be able to have this conversation. And it's wonderful to see some familiar faces in the room and some new ones as well. So I think it'll make for a really dynamic conversation.
Hi everyone, apologies for splicing myself into this video, but we actually ran into some technical difficulties, so we thought we would re-record this beginning bit and then it will be back to the scheduled programming. So my name is Petra. I am one of the co-creators of the Migration and Technology Monitor, and I'm so grateful to be able to share the work of our project with you today, but most importantly spotlight the work of our colleagues on the move who have been doing groundbreaking work at the intersection of borders and technology. But first, a little bit about the Monitor. So the Monitor first started in 2020 when we wanting to create a home and an archive for some of the work being done at the intersection of technology and migration. And at first it was an archive and a platform, but then it grew into a community. And we also started thinking, how do we work differently and how do we build a different world together? And one of the ways that we have taken on as our central ethos is redistribution of resources. So we have started a fellowship program. The first one was last year, where we incubate projects by colleagues on the move to tell their own stories on borders and surveillance. And we're lucky that we received some support from Open Society Foundation and Porticus Foundation, and we're so grateful for Mozilla for giving us the space today to talk about this. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Florian Schmitz, who has been working with me to administer this fellowship, and then, most importantly, you will hear from our 5 current fellows about the work that they're doing all the way from Mexico, Venezuela, Uganda, Nepal, and Malaysia, and beyond. So thank you so much for coming, and I hope you enjoy the program.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me well? Or am I breaking up as well? My internet should be stable. So I don't hear anything, no complaints. So, okay, I'm Florian. I joined Petra at the Monitor about a year and a half ago. I'm a working journalist. I just relocated from Greece, where I dealt a lot with migration in Greece and the Balkans. And I got increasingly frustrated with how the media handled things, because it's migration in many, in most situations is something that we don't talk about with each other, but we talk about migrants all the time. So we produce images of migrants that are far from reality, and we deprive them also of their experiences, of their professional approaches, of the ideas they have for solutions. And so when Petra told me about the Monitor, I was thrilled. because, as I said, I was growing frustrated with how we handle things, and I have to say that that during the past year, working with 5 incredible people who can contribute ideas on the basis of lived experience has also changed me. And with this participatory approach that we try to develop at the Monitor, it changes me as well. It's not about just building bridges for people on the move to work with us as equals. It also means that we, as people of the so-called global North or global West, need to adapt to new styles of working, to new styles of cooperations, and it's a process that is not easy to handle. It's very experimental. This is what we realized at the Monitor last year. It means that you have to listen a lot, that you have to monitor the way that you work and be very self-critical. It means to listen a lot and kind of leave behind what you used to know about working in this field. But it is necessary in order to understand the complexity of migration, because the way that I see it, especially now that I moved back from Greece to Germany, and I see how much of a niche migration is in this country, and I think it is all over the Western world, where people just don't grasp the necessity, the urgency to talk about this, and not as something humanitarian, not in terms of we need to save these people and act like this was an act of benevolence, but as something that we need to do in order to also safeguard our own lives, our own well-being, because privileges are not protected by building up borders. They're protected by extending them to others. This is the only way we can keep living in a world that seems still safe for us, right? Because I really believe, and I see that people in the West have not understood yet that human rights are something that also protect us. It's not something that we protect for others. It's something that we need to protect in order to safeguard our own lives. And this is exactly what we're trying to do at the Monitor: talk about issues that that we cause and that other people suffer from, and understand how these situations actually are from lived experience, and see how people, what kind of analyses people give who live through these situations, what we can learn from them, what kind of solutions they suggest. And I'm very happy to have gotten to know these 5 fellows that we have been working with for the past year: Nery Santaella, Verónica Martinez, Rajendra Paudel, Wael Qarssifi, and Simon Drotti. All people with very different backgrounds, connected through the experience of migration, and people trying to understand what's happening to them and therefore also to others, and also in some cases using technology as a solution, right? Because in the field of migration technology, a lot of times we tend to condemn technology as something that should not happen, and we do so for a reason. It's being abused a lot, and people still don't really understand what's happening at the external borders, and how far technology is being used on people on the move, tested on them, and then just being extended into our own lives at some point. But we have people like Nery, for example, or Simon, or Rajendra, who use technology as a means of support, of granting access to people on the move, to facilitate their the hardship they're going through in these oftentimes unbearable situations. And we need to hear their voices. And as Petra always says, we need to put them in the driver's seat. Like people like me usually talk. We're invited to talk shows and then talk on their behalves, but it's not necessary. Like these so many voices within these many mobile communities can assess the situation very objectively, and are exchanging thoughts and ideas among each other, and have solutions that we can learn from a lot. So I don't know how Petra is time-wise, or like
I think I'm back.
technology-wise.
I
Are
think
you
I'm
back?
back. I am. I'm sorry. I'm tethering to my phone instead. I'm really sorry about that tech interruption, but thank you for setting that up so nicely, Florian. just really to add, what we're trying to do is work differently, work horizontally, and also redistribute resources from institutions that have them. And this is where, the support from Mozilla and also our other funders, Open Society Foundation and Porticus Foundation, is really important because it allows us to continue this work. I mean, like many of us in the space, we're also facing a funding crunch, so it's always an adventure to keep this work going. But we are committed to it because we're really just getting started, and we want to be able to support and platform as many of our colleagues on the move as possible. So that's enough from us, though. We really want to turn it over to the fellows and to give them an opportunity to tell you about some of the amazing work that they're doing. So I think perhaps we'll go in the order that they appear on this poster. Nery, who is with us, would you mind telling us a little bit about your work for about 8 to 10 minutes? Then we'll move through the other fellows, and then we'll make sure that we have enough time for a discussion. Nery, please take it away.
Thank you. Nice to meet you all. My name is Nery Santaella. I have initiative that is called Voices of Venezuela. And basically, what we started as a media initiative. And then in this exercise of putting media out there for refugees on how to access these mechanisms of protections and services and programs that were catered towards them in order to protect them from human trafficking, we started seeing that we had a lot of conversations with people online, like we were having a lot of comments, and we also were having a lot of requests of questions on our inboxes. So we decided to do the jump to automate some processes of answering those questions, because we knew that there was some focus areas that were very common, and we built a chatbot, but we didn't have any money. So we have to kind of learn on our own how to make a chatbot over WhatsApp. And the response was overwhelming. People were contacting us nonstop, to a point where we became one of the highest engagement initiatives out there for refugees. We kind of have efficiently help 640,000 people. We impact them whenever they are inside the country. And that led us to navigate deeper into technology, to what if we are able to analyze all these questions and all these comments and all this information that people are giving us in order for us to kind of guide them towards what are the resources that they needed and that were available for them. What if we kind of analyze that and help with that information other organizations? So we kind of built models to anonymize the information once it hits our database. And we also are working on large language models to analyze that data and be able to have a quicker response to certain situations. Let's say during COVID, we had an increase of 300% on incidents of sexual violence towards women in the border area between Venezuela and Colombia. So what we did was we kind of gathered that information, and we able to compare with official numbers and said this is happening, there is something that needs to be done, and then partnering with other organizations in order to tackle that issue. We also noticed that during COVID, there was itinerances of how the challenges for COVID were in different areas. So, for example, where we have a town in the border where the main focus or the main issues were about mental health during seclusion and during COVID, and the other towns were more about like aligning their priorities with on during COVID with street vendors. So there was a lot of itinerances that we were able to quickly navigate, and because we were having this system in place where we can actually track and see some of the things that are happening in real life, like in real lifetime. That's what I mean. So for us was very important that to analyze this information and to share it with other people, but safeguarding the anonymity and the private data of our users, because for us is a pilot to measure actions, not people, because there is a lot of algorithms being built out there in order to, sell them or to include them in other markets, or to exploit them some way somehow. And we didn't want it to, to provide that information to no one. We didn't even have that information ourselves. So that's why we kind of like erase everything, erase all the personal data from people once we download the information from WhatsApp to our main database. So another thing that we were also that we are kind of exploring right now is like we have built a partnership with civic society organizations along the entire country in order to explain to them how artificial intelligence and works, and how this all these new technologies can be implemented in their work, so they know and they are aware of the dangers that it can have, but also the good uses and the ethical uses, and how can they navigate in that with a no harm approach. So in that, we have kind of created this like network of civic society organizations where we have around 70 plus organizations and 140 leaders of leaders that work on migration within the small communities around Colombia. So we kind of like have a Telegram group with them, different Telegram groups, depending on the areas. We have separated that in areas, and we built sandboxes where they can test some of these tools by putting the APIs and creating these spaces within Telegram, so they can test out some of the tools that are out there for free. And it's been awesome. Like the response is something that I was not expecting, because I know that tech can be very it could be a very like intimidating space for people that are non-tech. So I was very pleased to find that they were able to go through 4 hours of training, to an entire class of 4 hours of training, and they were like on the edge of their seats in just like looking at all these tools and how they can be utilized to make their work more efficient.
Great.
That's it. I was trying to be as brief as possible.
That's perfect. Thank you, Nery. And that was such a great overview. Now on to Veronica. Do you want to share a bit about your work?
Sure. Thank you, Petra. So first, to introduce myself, I am a journalist. Well, my name is Verónica Martinez. I am a journalist located in Ciudad Juarez, and I currently cover border issues and immigrations for a news media organization called La Verdad de Juárez. And I have worked on these topics throughout the Paso del Norte region, so that covers Ciudad Juárez, Chihuahua, and El Paso, Texas, and Las Cruces, New Mexico. And so on my work for the Migration and Tech Monitor, I wanted to focus on CBP One, because I was seeing how the use of this application was becoming more and more relevant on the immigration coverage here in the region. And just how like it was becoming more relevant for the asylum seekers that were reaching the region of Juarez. And so I just kind of like saw how the US government set this kind of new rules on how people on the move should approach asylum requests, and moving it into the digital space. And so I worked on this investigation for La Verdad, and for me, there were three main takeaways that I'm going to be sharing with you. The first one is that approaching asylum seeking through a digital process is really not making it more accessible for people on the move. And well, I mean, that was kind of like the objective and the narrative that the Department of Homeland Security and the US government was pushing when they introduced the use of this application. But since the beginning of my reporting and since this application came into the picture, there were this constant complaint from people on the move about how it wasn't working. It was constantly crashing, especially during the face recognition step of the process. And it was just making it impossible for people to get an appointment to request asylum. And even as the number of spaces for appointments were increased during each day, it was still taking people up to 6 months to get an appointment. But also to some people, it was taking around 2 weeks. So it was also very confusing for migrant people and asylum seekers on how the whole process was working. And it led to a lot of frustration and confusion. And so I visited 2 locations in Ciudad Juarez that usually see a high influx of people on the move because they offer all type of services for them. And so these were kind of like the Office of Human Mobility, that is run by a religious organization, by a Catholic organization in Juarez, but also the state's Center for the Center for Attention for Migrants at the state offices. And so what we also saw is that a new kind of service came into the picture with CBP One. And it was that a lot of people were requesting assistance and just guidance on how to use the application, how to sign up. And so that kind of showed how the international and local organizations that are located in Ciudad Juarez were kind of like seeing this demand and fulfilling it. And so I also kind of like wanted to share some quotes from one of my sources, from Cristal Sandoval from the organization Las Americas. This is an organization that offers legal services for migrants in the region, but also started to offer this orientation and assistance services. So Cristal said, CBP One is not user-friendly at all. If it was easy to use, we wouldn't have so many people asking for assistance or people calling us. For me, the truth is that the issue is that this cannot be the only way for people to access asylum. We have encountered an infinity of people who are very vulnerable. People who can write and read, people who speak a different language from the ones that are available on the app, and people who just struggle with technology. So we really saw how CBP One, rather than becoming a tool that helps people access asylum or like a bridge, it was becoming an obstacle. And the second takeaway, important for me, was also to see how CBP One was switching and changing the necessities of people on the move here in the border. So now the access to internet sources and power sources were kind of being prioritized over other needs like access to health services or even shelters. It was also interesting to see the solutions that the migrant community was coming around and how they kind of like solve these obstacles. And the third takeaway for me was also seeing how for me, like the third takeaway was that for me, CBP One was always kind of like this digital app that had the purpose of diminishing the amount of physical people that we see in the border and kind of like switching it to this digital line. But what was actually the reality that the numbers were showing us? And it was that the encounters at the border were not stopping. Border Patrol was still encountering a great amount of people at the border. So between May and December of 2023, it was around 324 CBP One appointments that were processed through the ports of entry. So that means that that 324,000 people were able to get an appointment and to go to the ports of entry, right? But also the data shows that Border Patrol registered 1,433,000 encounters at the border. So that's less than 25%. Well, the amount of CBP appointments is less than 25% of the amount of people that were kind of like ditching that solution and going to the border. So would I say that CBP One is not working? My conclusion was that it was not covering the great demand that we saw at the border. And so to wrap it up, I just want to say one more thing, and it's where I think that the conversation about CBP One should be going, where we should be putting our attention. And for me, one of the more important things is that I see the use of CBP One being similar to the implementation of immigration policies, similar, especially to the migrant protection protocol. And so it's very similar in the way that it's functioning and in the way and in the consequences that it's creating at the border communities. So while with MPP, it was also known as Remain in Mexico, we were seeing people waiting at the shelters in Ciudad Juarez, kind of like waiting in Mexico for their asylum processes, for their court dates to come. CBP One is still making people to wait in Mexico, only that they're now doing it through their phones, right? And so, in the way that it's working and in its consequences, it's another way of implementing a Remain in Mexico policy. And so let's also remember that CBP and DHS has been promoting this app as a way to safely, humanely, and orderly manage migration. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Veronica. And also, please take a look at the chat. I'm trying to share the work of our fellows there so you can access it later. Now on to Rajendra. Please, Rajendra, go ahead.
Hi, thank you for the opportunity. So should I share my screen? Is possible? So I have a small presentation to show, so that's easy to understand because my English is not much good. So I am showing some visuals, then you can understand what I'm doing.
You should be able to share your screen. Please let me know if you have the problem.
You cannot start screen share while, okay. Oh, yes, now I think so, because there is, okay. Sorry for the interrupt. So I think. So Petra, can we go to Wael or any other person? Because I think
Sure, yeah, that's a good idea. Let's go to Wael and then you can figure out how to share. That's perfect. Okay. Good idea.
Okay.
All right, Wael, take it away.
Thank you, Petra. Thank you, Rajendra. Hello, everyone. My name is Wael Qarssifi. I am a journalist from Syria, and I'm a fellow at the Migration and Technology Monitor since last year. My work mainly, so currently I am in Denmark. I'm on the move because I was in Malaysia last year and I had to leave. And my work is focused on covering stories about people on the move in Malaysia and in Southeast Asia mainly. And I think I'm going to talk about two main things of my work that are really matter to me. First of all is the technology aspect and the surveillance aspect. But the second is the framing of how people on the move are framed in journalism and in media in general, especially in Southeast Asia. So the first aspect of my work is, for a good time, I was working on covering how the government of Malaysia was surveilling and monitoring refugees in the country. One of the main tools was this technology that, and this application that it's a system that they introduced called the Tracking Refugees Information System. And that system sounds like a surveillance system that is similar to what, for example, Veronica is working on, like on the border. But I think the main difference in Malaysia is that Malaysia is not a country that is signatory to the Refugee Convention or any refugee protocols. So basically, these applications do not serve any asylum-seeking purpose for refugees in the country. Because of that, it's mainly a surveillance system, and that system makes refugees hand in very sensitive information in that sense. So if we're talking about the TRIS system, you see refugees going there, paying money to the government. They pay around $150 to register for this system, where a lot of sensitive information is taken from them, such as biometric information about their whereabouts in the country, about their family members outside and inside the country. And in exchange for that, they get an ID card. But the problem is that ID card is not recognized by anyone, even the immigration management themselves. So a lot of refugees, I spoke to some refugees who paid the money, registered in that system, and then got arrested by the immigration because the immigration does not recognize this kind of ID card, because in the end, it can be traced back to the national registry system in Malaysia. So basically, it's nothing. It means nothing. And the problem with this application, when I investigated it, is I found out it was handled to a private company, and that private company was run by the former head of the special branch, which is the intelligence unit of the Malaysian police. So we're talking about a very dangerous sentiment here. We're talking about the government that is handling a surveillance system, tracking people on the move, asylum seekers and refugees, to benefit a former head of intelligence to gain money out of the suffering of those people. And the problem is this system, on top of all those problems, is not offering any protection to people on the move in Malaysia. So that was, for me, that was a very interesting point in my work, where I started looking more at the capitalistic notion of border technologies, not just on the border, but when they surveil people within the border. And it got me to a point where I think one of the main questions that we should always ask as journalists and as researchers when we look into border technologies, who is benefiting from this? Because we're talking about tens of billions of dollars industry every year, like the border technology and border protection. So I think that point and that investigation about the TRIS system changed for me the way that I look at things as a journalist. And because of that, like moving forward, every time I work on something related to borders or surveillance or people on the move, I think one of the main questions that I try to look into is who is gaining money out of this? Because everything in the capitalist system that we live in today, everything is measured by financial contribution. And that's why it's very important to look into that. And this is the case of surveillance in Malaysia. I mean, I mentioned before, but I'm just gonna repeat this again. The problem in Malaysia, again, is that the country is not a signatory to the Refugee Convention or any refugee protocols. So people who hold the title refugee in Malaysia are not refugees effectively because they're not recognized by the law. So this is one aspect of my work, is covering this type of surveillance that is being inflicted upon people on the move in Malaysia. Now, the second part is, which I spoke to Petra about before, which is the most complicated part. For me, as someone on the move and as a journalist, I see how in the media, refugees and asylum seekers, people on the move, are dehumanized in a way or another. And By that I mean they are either portrayed as victims, as people with no will, people with no power, people with no say in what happens for them, or they are put on a pedestal as heroes who take awards and are put on the stage. And the question that I always ask myself as a journalist, what about the average person? What about the normal person? What about the person on the move who just wants to have a 9-to-5 job? They just want to have their coffee in the morning. They want to raise a cat at home, and they just want to have a normal life. And I think this aspect of the life of people on the move, just the regular, is very much ignored in the media. We either talk about very extreme cases. I'm not saying that is not important. Of course, it is important to cover the suffering of people on the move that is being inflicted upon them because of a lot of border policies. But also, you feel like there gets to a point where people on the move have to fit in one of the two boxes. You're either a victim or a superhero. But what about if you just want to be a normal human being, as you are? And this is the thing. So I try in my work every day to counter this narrative, and it's not easy for anyone here is listening who is a journalist or an aspiring journalist. It's not easy at all. It's very hard to navigate. It's very tricky because sometimes people are, if we like it or not, victims of reality. They are victims of the circumstances they live under. So how do you explain that without victimizing them? And I think one good way to navigate it is to give much space as you can to people themselves in your storytelling. And a lot of times I see reporting on people on the move where we ask them, what is the problem? And they explain what their problem is. And then we move on and we go to like NGOs or experts or activists and ask them, what do you think the solution is? But we never ask people on the move what they think the solution is for them. And I think that's a very important aspect to look into when we cover and report stories about people on the move. So I think this other aspect of my work is very tricky, and I do not claim to have like a solution to it or an outcome from it, but I think it's just important to keep this conversation in our head when we work, either in research or in journalism or even in literature, when we, even like in fiction, when we write about people on the move. I think it's just important to keep in our head and realize that refugees, asylum seekers, anyone on the move are just as individual as each one of us. And they don't have to fit any role. They don't have to be great at speaking English. They don't have to be driving planes, or they don't have to be a victim in a tent in a refugee camp. They are just normal human beings that happen to be in specific circumstances because of reasons beyond their control. So I try to do that in my work. I try to navigate that in so many different ways, and it's not easy. And I'm still trying to figure that out. But NTM helped me really focus on that. It gave me like the financial and the intellectual freedom and space to slow down a little bit, not be on survival mode. And as a person on the move, think for myself and for other people on the move, how can we tell our stories in the best ways possible? I don't want to take any much more of your time, so I hope that wasn't too long. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Wael. Really, really great words there, and lots that I'm sure we'll pick up in discussion as well. So now back to Rajendra. Looking forward to seeing your presentation.
Sorry, I didn't open my mic. That's the reason. So thank you for the opportunity. I'm going to show you this presentation. First of all, I want to start from my journey. My migration journey was started in 2010. I am originally from Nepal, and after complete my graduation in Nepal, I born in a small village in Nepal. There is for the higher study, I lived with my relatives. After graduation, I moved to the KSA for the work in 2010. In that time, I just I don't know what is the abroad, what kind of things is happening in outside the country. For example, what type of work we have to do, what type of culture is there. When I reached the Saudi Arabia, my companies bring me a room where 7 people sitting in the same room, and I it means I live on there 7 days, 2 months on the same room. It means with 7 people. I thought the abroad is the same things. It's always people are living in the same room. There is no any bed. Many things was happening. So right now I'm thinking, in that time I was on the forced labor. I wasn't aware about that. So after that, I went 2013 in Saudi Arabia, after UAE, after returning to my home. I lived in home in Nepal 6 months because of the unemployment in Nepal. I returned back to the UAE in Gulf. In that time, I just little bit aware about my past experience. That's the reason I started Facebook Live in 2017. I created a Facebook page and created a YouTube channel and started to publish video. The things was, if I didn't know about the rules and regulation, then I feel I got many troubles when I'm traveling or when I'm working. That's the reason I distribute the information about UAE, about work, about rights, the many things to Nepali language for Nepali community who is living in UAE, Middle East, in outside the country as a migration. And my focus is on migrant worker, especially because I am also as a migrant worker. I was working in that. And right now I'm creating content on foreign employment, like foreign employment related information, awareness, for example, somehow Nepal to other countries, what kind of things is happening to go. And the many things, government issue the new rules and regulations, they have a new notice, those type of things. I am creating some videos. Awareness too, like financial literacy, digital literacy, and fraud alert. Financial literacy, digital literacy, I think the many people knows about it. Especially I'm focusing for the migrant workers, because for migrant workers there is a temporary migration, because we cannot get any PR in this type of country like Malaysia, in Gulf. Many people we are working from Nepal, India, Bangladesh, in right now in Gulf. So in these countries we cannot get PR. This is the temporary migration. It means we have the power to work in the certain level, like 20 to 40 years old, or 25 to 30, 45, 55. This is the age of our life. We are very productive. We can earn some money to save or build something to our country, or for the retirement. Some countries we don't have any retirement plan in our countries, like in here also. That's the reason I'm making or creating video on financial literacy, save, invest, investment, save, invest, those type of things I'm covering for the migrant workers. And another thing is digital literacy. This is the very important things is right now. And another one thing is fraud alert. I'm making video on fraud alert. Fraud alert means many kind of fraud happening for us, many kind of scamming happening with us, like employment scam, parcel scam, those type of things. Many kind of thing, especially 4 or 5 kind of regular things, scamming things is happening. Somehow, sometimes it's OTP fraud. People are, some scammer are getting our OTPs and they are hacking our banks, our social media accounts. Those type of things is happening. That's the reason I'm creating video on fraud alerts too. Right now I have some followers, like in YouTube I have a 417K subscriber, and Facebook 242K followers. On TikTok 105K followers. TikTok is banned in Nepal a few months ago, That's the reason it's not expanding too much, but I'm creating content because our friends are our viewers, friends who is living in the outside the country, there is working. That's the reason I'm creating content on TikTok too. And the most important thing is we are not much active on LinkedIn and Instagram. The reason is our people who is working, who is the targeted group, they are active on these platforms. That's the reason I choose this platform to grow our distribution the information. The impact on Facebook, just I saw a few months statistics in here. So somehow 92 million views on as a whole videos. So in around 6 months, I got 10,528 personal messages. I have a small team. It means 2 people who help me to reply the messages. The messages just replying for their queries and problems. Like for example, the small problem: how to renew my passport in abroad. This visa or offer letter is original or fake. Those type of things we are solving to the people. I think 10,000 people we are solving it on last 6 months, and 24 million views on whole videos on the YouTube. I have 764 videos I created last of 2017 to till date. I think some people are somehow we can think this is the stupid things. People have this type of things, how people was. So the 2 topics I want to share with you. One topic, how to use toilets, airlines toilet. It means airplanes toilet. I created videos 5 years ago, and we can view 665K. This Nepali language video. So it means people are curious how to use the toilet of airlines. So many people don't know about that. Even I wasn't unaware about when I'm traveling the first time. That's the reason I was created this type of videos. Around this type of somehow basic things I created and posted on YouTube. Another one videos we posted on our Facebook. My wife also helped me to create content. Before, she was just helping from back end. Right now, last 1 year, she is also creating the content with me. So we created a video. The video was 5.4 million views on Facebook. I think this is a few weeks ago, 6 months ago. I think this video was about what is the things we can bring on custom in Nepal airport. It means when we are abroad, we are returned back to our home, then what things we can bring in our house, in our home, in our pass in our custom. Like for example, we cannot take above 50 grams gold in our country without custom. Those type of things we are sharing in there. We cannot bring 3 mobiles in our country. Those type of things we were share, and 5.4 million views was there. It means people are curious, people want to know. Then this is the things helping to people. Another one thing is just I returned back 2018 to Nepal, and I helped to one organization to build in the main position. Right now, our friends are working. It's Shramik Sanjal, growing the social media handle and growing the company system, also organization system also too in there. And I found, it means Migration Tech Monitor found me and helped me. This is the very great opportunity to me. I had a dream to build a mobile application, region of Migration Tech Monitor MTM. I did that. So that's the reason I just created few months ago launch. But right now, as there is no much content, that's the reason I'm not doing the massive marketing or massive announcement to my audience. But a few, I have 500 downloads on the mobile application. The mobile application name is Bidesh. It is the centralized information platform, aspiring migrant workers and current migrant workers. We are creating content on social media, but social media's content somehow there is, it's not, the algorithm of social media is not good. That's the reason people are not getting the right real information. That's the reason creating this information. This is the a mobile application. This mobile application will be a global in future in my vision. So the Bidesh is means abroad in Nepali, in Nepal, Bangladesh, in Pakistan. We are domain also the Bidesh online. And just I want to show you some screenshot of my mobile application. This is the screenshot. Just we can sign up with the email or some things or Google, and we choose the home country and destination country, not much more. And for example, my home country is Nepal, and my destination country is two countries I want to go, Malaysia and United Arab Emirates. And just I choose the language, the Nepali language or English language. Right now I choose the English language, but content available in Nepali, and the many content in video format, because video format is easy to understand. That's the reason. So when we are going to inside the mobile application, we can find this type of tab, like for example, about the destination country, cost of living, process to destination country, important contact when we are going to the destination country. These type of things we are covering in the application. Like for example, I'm tapping the popular job of profession in that country for Nepali. So we can find many four main profession. We just updated two here, one in security, one in factory worker. People are working in Nepali, in Malaysia. So if people wants to know about the factory workers, we have a video. What type of work is factory worker? How security, how many hours they have work, what is the salary package, where they can do work. Those type of things we are covering on this video. So, and another one thing, we are covering some question answer. The people have about the questions about that country. So they have a question, the many asking question. We are, like for example, in here we are covering which language is speak in Malaysia, what type of weather is there. So this type of things is we are covering here. So if we are in new country, just right now I'm in UAE and creating content for the UAE. United Arab Emirates just not available the content. That's the reason not showing the tab in here. And in my Bidesh application, in future plan is in this year, in next year, how it is possible to is the many other things like financial and other things. So we are covering including the jobs also available, because it can help to the people, our friends, to get jobs in direct companies. So it will be eliminated agent, and they will be find the job indirectly, because our many people, they don't have the much of education, they are not literate. That's the reason the scamming is happening, especially employment scam. That's the reason I have to build inside application the jobs section also. Another things which I'm doing right now, I'm doing the frequently, because I love to going to the ground level, love to meet with my people, because I want to understand the daily basis what kind of things happening. I'm talking to them. That's the reason I'm going to the workers accommodation and visit them, sharing some ideas, somehow conducting some training. So, and another in-person training I'm doing in Nepal, Malaysia, and UAE, especially and in Nepal, aspiring migrant workers, in Malaysia and UAE, current migrant workers. The content should be slightly different, but it's all around the traveling, all around the migration, labor law, those type of things, and saving, those type of things. And in last year, I just attend a seminar. It was a USAID Asia CTIP in Thailand. It means I am learning from this type of event when I get the opportunity to go, and I am sharing to the other my colleagues, my friends who need it. So thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity to share my stories and works. Thank you.
Thank you, Rajendra. You know, I always learn so much from all our fellows, but I have to say your social media work like blows me away as someone who hates social media. I think we have a lot to learn from your amazing engagement. So last but not least, we do have Simon joining us. I'm really, really glad that he's here. Sometimes internet connectivity issues are a real problem for our team, but I'm really, really glad that he's here. So please, Simon, take it away.
Hello, everyone. I greet you all. Hope you're all having a great day. Am I allowed to share a screen?
Sure, yeah, if you can.
Yes, I would like to appreciate the organizers and also MTM Fellowship for having given me this opportunity to present my work. My name is Dr. Simon, and then I will be presenting about the project I've been doing with the Migration and the Technology Monitor from 2023 to 24. It was a great journey for me, especially to come up with this idea and then to bring it to life. Yes, a lot has been going on, and my life, basically, I grew in Uganda, and now after completing senior 6, life became a little bit hard, so I had to proceed to the settlement to stay with my brother. And then while there in the settlement, things were not easy, and then we got started some computer place from which we were training computer basics. I was having already some small skills in graphics and design, and then my brother was good in audio production. So after when we struggled a little bit with the training, there also came another opportunity for computer training again. This time I joined as a student. And it was a funded project organized by C10 with the Mercy Corps, and then there were also some other partners included in it. The project ran for 8 months, so I joined as a trainer, and then because for me I was already having the skills and then the curiosity to learn more in the computer field, I stood out from among the students to be the first. And then after when the project actually completed, there was no more funds, and I was identified to be taking care of the center from where they were doing actually the training. And then I stayed there in the center, and we were interacting with the refugees. And then after some 5 months, there also came another project. And then since I've been there, this time I've been given the opportunity to now train as be a tutor to train to train the applicants. We enrolled up to 5,000 applicants. That year it was a project that ran for 8 months, and then afterwards the project also ended. And then I continued being in the center still to now be as the center manager to manage the center. And good enough, we are with a lot of other colleagues, and among which happens to be Mr. Matthew Lubari. He seems to be here in the meeting too. There are a lot of things I learned from him, and we always educate ourselves on several things. And then now the idea of memory scroll actually came right from my experience of life itself. The village I grew in, it is in a very small village. And in that village, we happens to be like the poorest. And the memories of those villages, I mean the memories in that life, actually, I carried it along. So sometimes it touches me, and then sometimes I feel strength from those memories, because it was from the memories that I'm able to change, that things are able to change. And then I also sometimes use my personal stories to comfort my fellow colleagues. And when I use my stories, it appears to them already that there is a light that's already coming. Because the me who was like this now, if it's able to be like this, I think my situation is not far different from his. Mine can as well change. So I've been using my stories to encourage my colleagues, and then also use my colleagues' stories to actually encourage me, because there is that sense in me that we grew together and then we learn from each other. So while I was now living in the settlement, this idea now came that if we could actually have an archive, like a place where all your story is taken care of, all your story is narrated, you can be able to refer back to the stories, because sometimes I wish I have those old memories, I have those old lifestyle when I was deep down in the villages, maybe when I was still five years old. I wish I had those pictures. So I came with the idea that if now we get started with this idea, and then we build it such that those who are going to come after us will not have the same regrets that I'm having. So that's why the idea of the memory scroll now came. And the MTM fellowship helped a lot to bring this idea to life. Otherwise, it was just a raw idea. And when I made it the submission, I wasn't even sure whether it's going to go through, because it was something I was so passionate about. And now when the call came that I went through, it appeared to me like it's a dream that has already come true. So here we now have the memory scroll up, and it's basically going to the name itself is the memory scroll. And then I'm delighted to share the innovation this app has. And we are making it to basically benefit the refugees more. because we understand that the refugees, when they were in their country, life must have been so different. Some may have been having actually a good life, and now when the war strike, it actually changed everything. And then also their journey on the way, it must have not been easy for some. Like I picked one of the stories shared with one of my friends whom we grew together. She mentioned a lot of things. And now such stories, if they were kept, they were archived, and then someone come and see them after that, it actually has the power to influence and then to change something. Like right now, this lady over here, she's working with the village enterprise, and things have already changed. But still, the memories that she had formerly, it is very, very important, and it's very much treasured. So we are so passionate about using the technology from the grassroots to foster empathy and then also community engagement, because we want to preserve and then amplify the voices that cannot be heard from the remote places. And then now, why do we want to continue with the DC memory scroll? Why do we think it is so important? Because refugees often face challenges in sharing their stories, preserving their memories, and also connecting with their fellow friends. Now, when they have a space where they can be free, where they can freely share their stories and share their narratives, it will give it will open up a way for the world to be able to hear their story. Because most of the times the story that goes to the media are the stories that we are collected, and then sometimes it's not gotten deep. I mean, sometimes they don't go so deep in the ground. This is a story that they may have gotten from another person, also from another person. But what if we now have these refugees create an account and then have their own story in their own account, and then those stories are used to advocate and then share their voices out. So we are trying to make this archive to be able to achieve that purpose, such that the refugees and then the people who are advocating on them will pick these stories and then we'll share them to the social platform. And then this platform is going to include very many characters of people. We'll have organizations, we'll have individuals, we'll also have the government. So if they will be aware of such a thing happening in this place, it will actually be very easy to have connection between the government and then the refugees, and then to be able to share ourselves these stories, and then to be able to know where actually what is happening. So that's the insight we actually pick from this app. And not only that, the app also have its vision. And then with this, we are planning to provide a platform for the refugees to share their stories through photos, videos, and then also audio recordings. And also, not only that, we want to enable them to connect with the global world, because when this story is shared, the internet has a wide, the internet is so broad. Something that is shared in a minute, something that is shared from robotically can be able to reach a greater audience within seconds. So we want to take importance of these stories that are from the rural areas, and then we want people to be able to have access to it, to actually know what's happening in such a place. And then by this, we will be able to have empowered the marginalized voices, and then also foster empathy to reserve the diverse cultures. Because now, when these refugees actually came to the settlement, sometimes the young ones, they end up now forgetting their culture, because a lot have changed, and then they are already in a different setting. So they also have to just go with whatever thing they are presented with, but want to make it a platform for them to be able to also practice their culture. So with this, we want to empower those voices that cannot be heard. We want to be able to extend the area that the empathy is able to cover, and then we want to preserve those cultures from actually dying, and then want them to be free. Want them to feel free to share their story, to share their culture, and then to feel like they are at home while maintaining their culture. So the app has its features. Of course, I'm just going to highlight the main ones. One of them happens to be the life story sharing. We want to provide a secure platform where the individuals can share their photos, videos, and then also audio recordings of their experiences before, during, and then also after the tragic. And then the app is also having a feature for the story archival. Once these stories are stored, they are going to be stored. And if the person or if the user comes to see it after maybe 5 years, they will still be able to have access to the same story that was posted. And then it also allows for connectivity. this feature connects users to each other. They can be able to message between themselves, share their stories, and also comment on various other comment on each other's stories. And then we also created a site for them to build their resume, because we have also noticed within Uganda that the rate of unemployment is high. And sometimes it's because the youth do not have access to actually these job opportunities. So we created a space somewhere in the profile section for them to be able to build their profile, their education status, and then the languages they're able to speak, the experiences they're already having, and then some other vital components. And then why we are building this one is because the organization who will want a participant or who will want an employee will come to their profile, and then they will just be able to see those profiles from there. And then these users can as well be able to share their profile to potential employers for employability. And then the support and assistance feature is also there. The integration with the donation channels and then resources to provide support for the people of concern. We are trying to make it sure that when an advocate finds someone who is so critical and then the person needs a help, this donation can actually be channeled directly to the person. So these are some of the features the app is having, but there is of course a lot more that the app is having, and which I cannot be able to share here. But towards the end of this presentation, we'll be having a link that you can actually have an access to the app. And then we are trying to address a need here. One, the context. We have currently up to 280,000 refugees, South Sudanese refugees. These are the ones in the Bidibid alone. And then there are over 580,000 nationals living in the Bidibid refugee settlement. But as we all know that Uganda is not only hosting South Sudanese refugees. The refugees from Congo, the refugees from DRC Congo. But for now, we have just narrowed our scope to the South Sudanese refugees living within the refugee settlement. We want to see how effective this app is within the South Sudanese refugee setting, and then after which we now have to extend it from there. And then, of course, there is already a challenge where there is a limited opportunity for refugees to actually share their stories, because this happens based on the experience that we have on the ground. Your story can only be shared when your issues are actually very critical. But there are actually some situations that are very critical, but they go unnoticed. So we are trying to solve that challenge by bringing the app to the refugees, and that they will be able to own it and then have it as their own, and then share their stories of resilience as they continue using the app. And then the Memorial Scroll app also bridges the gap by providing a safe and accessible platform. Now, this platform allows the users to be able to experience between themselves, and then to also be able to interact between themselves, know each other's stories, and then actually know where so and so is. And then with these stories, they will be able to know that their issues are actually not much critical than others if stories are being shared and then lifestyles are being read on the platform. Yes, and then we also move on with the impact the app is able to have on a global scale. We want to get the technology, first of all, to the grassroots. We want to make the impact of technology to help also the locals, because most of the times when technology increases, those who already have the knowledge of technology, they go far away, and then it creates that gap. So we are trying to create that gap between where the gap the technology is trying to bring between people who already have the knowledge and then between people who have not. So we're trying to bridge that gap. And then we're also trying to amplify voices of the marginalized, empowering refugees and the people in challenging situations to also share their narratives and then advocate for change. We are building a community that establishes and then support each other, because we are all moved by emotion. Sometimes what shapes my life today must have been somebody's story. So day after day, we keep reading things, we keep getting information from some other people's stories. So we want to treasure this information, we want to build this community that's able to understand, the community that's able to respond to each other's needs. And then we're also trying to raise awareness here. by educating the public about the refugee experiences. Because if stories are not shared, if somebody experiences a challenge and then the challenge is not shared, it just goes on there, and sometimes we will come and notice when actually the challenge has gone to a state where it cannot be treated. But however small the situation is, however small the progress in life is, however small the challenge that you may encounter is, if you're able to keep record of it, if you're able to store it somewhere, you will still come and one time notice the importance that this story actually has in your life. And then we are trying to also foster employability by helping these refugees to be able to reach a greater audience, advocate for them, and then their skills which they already have, such that they can be able to get employed with the potential employers.
Simon, thank you so
Yes,
much.
we
I'm
already.
so sorry to jump in, but we do want to make sure that we have enough time for the other fellows to come back to the conversation and for us to have a Q&A. Would it be okay for us to move on? And maybe you can tell us a little more about the application during the Q&A.
Yes, I think this happens to be the last slide. We have the vision to expand the app, of course, to also look for partnership with the organization and then funders on how best we can improve on the app itself. And then, yeah, that's basically the end of it. And then I really want to appreciate you for listening. And I wish you the best, waiting for the Q&A section. Thank you.
Thank you, Simon, and thank you again to all the fellows and to all of you for coming. We have about 15 minutes or so for a conversation and some Q&A. You know, and I really want to reiterate that one of the main goals of the MTM is to work together in partnership and to learn from one another in a much more horizontal participatory way. And we do this through everything we do at the MTM, including, for example, the current fellows choosing the next cohort of colleagues who are going to be announced next week, although some of them are in the room with us already. You know, we really see this as a different way of working to also try and get away from some of the power relations that are so baked into how knowledge is produced and who counts as an expert. And I hope that you see that we've met 5 amazing experts from communities on the move that are with us today who have lots to say about migration issues. So if you are ever working on a story or doing research or just interested in their work, get in touch with them directly. We really are hoping to build out this kind of community of expertise here. But I'm sure there are questions in the room. So please, anybody, if you're comfortable, go ahead. I have many questions too, but I don't want to take up the floor. Well, maybe I'll get us started. I'm wondering if the fellows can kind of reflect on some of the challenges that are kind of inherent in being part of a mobile community and getting access to spaces to share your work and access to networks such as, you know, even the media or research centers or funding, and why it's important to collaborate with one another.
I guess I'll start. Well, I think that from a very personal perspective, one of the challenges that I have faced the most is like everywhere I go, I have to like really go hardcore on this talks on explain very thoroughly what I do and talk about the numbers, because as I don't have the education that back up my knowledge, I tend to be perceived most of the time as an influencer, when in theory I do like a lot more than just being out there talking to people. And sometimes there's the difficulty, like you just go and being perceived as an uneducated person just because you come from a country where you know, this kind of things are not like the main thing. But I'm a very curious person, and I'm a self learner. So I guess that's that. And also being a woman in a tech space is not that easy. Like usually you have to kind of like be the loudest voice in the room in order for people to pay attention to your ideas. And what I do to go around that is proof. like I when nobody wanted to support me and everybody told me that my project was an impossible project because I needed $1 million to do it, I did it with zero funding and I did it on my own. So it was like, I'm gonna make this work. And after I had the numbers to back me up that my solution actually worked, after I piloted, then those spaces open a little bit more for me, but I have to kind of go around and instead of pitching my idea, just make it happen.
That's such a good way of framing it, like almost carving out space, making space, right? We always say, oh, let's bring communities on the move to the table, but maybe the tables themselves are wrong. Like we need to build new tables as well and completely new ways of working. Any other colleagues want to share?
I can share. I was thinking about the question, like, first in my personal experience as a journalist, or also what I see in my community as a border community. And I think that when we're thinking about resources that are going towards immigration issues and all of these things, a lot of decisions and my immigration policies are done like at Washington, D.C. and Mexico City, like miles away from the border. And those policies and those decisions have an effect on our communities, on the border community and on the migrant population. And so there is a lack of resources that are coming through the community because like there is this weight put on these communities to support and give humanitarian support to the people coming here. And so there's this big kind of like inversion and coming of money into the community. And sometimes like we don't know what to do with it. Well, not that we don't know what to do with it, but there is a lot of needs. And sometimes we fall short on the resources that are made available for us. And also sometimes it's too much. Like we already have more than 5 international organizations here in Ciudad Juarez and in other border communities. And that's important and that helps out. But sometimes they are limited on the amount of things that they can do. And I personally wish that more money will come to the local organizations that we have here and that are doing work, and also not take away the responsibility from authorities. Like it is the federal, state, and municipal's responsibility to cover basic needs like shelter, food for the people that are coming here. So yeah, there's a lot of need of collaborations and just making these safety networks, but also knowing how we will be using that resource. Like a lot of organization is needed.
Thanks, Veronica, and thanks for mentioning the issue of funding, right? Which is, I think, on a lot of our minds. Even when we are lucky enough to get some resources, how do we actually design these projects that are really helpful to people on the move and on the ground, especially in small communities that oftentimes don't get access to resources? And again, not to bring it back to the monitor, but this is one of our kind of founding ideas. Like we try and support people who are not eligible for funding through other means often. And that has been a really interesting way to, again, redistribute resources. And even in something like, you know, we could have had 20 fellows, for example, but we chose to have 5 so that we could support each fellow sufficiently with a living stipend for a year. That was a bit of a fight because some colleagues wanted, you know, a much sexier, bigger project, right? But we really stood our ground and thought a smaller community is better.
And if I may add, Petra, even for us in the Western world, it's kind of hard to maneuver through all these processes of getting funding.
Florian, I think your mic, there's something with your microphone.
Oh, really?
We're having all sorts of tech issues today.
Correct.
It's okay. This is very on brand with the monitor.
This is tech people being tech people. It's so common.
Is it better now?
No, still really fuzzy. You can text it to me and I can ask the question. Yeah, very frothy. Yeah, sorry, can't quite hear. But yeah, maybe, you know, for the last few minutes, unless there are any questions from the audience, I do want to ask, you know, what's next? Now, we are so sad to see this cohort finish with the MTM, although we hope that we will have our clutches in you forever and are planning to build out an alumni support network and all of this. But we want to hear more about where you're heading with this work and also what you need as you move forward.
Oh, okay. Well, if for my part, I am escalating into like teaching artificial intelligence and bringing artificial intelligence and bringing generative AI to civic society organizations so they have more efficient processes, and also advocating for policies for to protect people from tech that is being developed, especially people on the move, because there is all sorts of monitoring, tracking algorithms that are out there in order to, you know, make some of the processes more difficult for them. They say like migration processes to regularize a status, and also in within one of the things that we're also doing is looking at algorithms that are used in banking to prevent refugees from accessing regular banking, because it's a main focus. Like, you cannot have somebody in a community and give them an ID and just not fix all the other problems or all the other challenges that are there that prevents them from being functional citizens and accessing all the rights. Because if they do not have access to banking, it's just keeping them relegated into very dangerous outside economies.
Anyone else? Veronica, Rajendra, Wael, or Simon?
Okay, I can add another. Oh, I don't know if someone else wanted to go.
Yeah, Veronica. Okay. No.
Okay, I'll keep it short. But like personally, I feel that we still have to keep an eye on CBP One and other technologies that are coming into the asylum process. And that's the good thing about the monitor, right? Like, there is an opportunity for collaboration. Like, we know that in the coming group of fellows, there's also another project relating to CBP One. So I'm excited to see like what type of collaboration or just connections can be made. But I also like invite other journalists and other people interested in this topic to keep an eye on it. Maybe someone that also has like a better understanding of technology than me, because I focus on immigration policy. That's what I know. Like, the technology part was a challenge. And I will also be interested of how like other writers and other journalists like look into this topic. But I also like to say that the Migration and Technology Monitor not only allowed me to do my work and to look into CBP One, but it also allowed my coworkers, like the rest of the journalists in La Verdad, to also continue us doing our work, because we're an independent news media company. We don't receive money from a lot of sources. So also like the Migration and Tech Monitor was supporting independent journalism.
Rajendra, I think you had something to say.
Some questions on the chat box I am seeing, but just Amitho, he's asking, just want to ask about how these fellows are going to sustain their projects. This is the main challenges things. Then this is the first cohort of the fellows. So the many projects, region of funding, they will be die after the bond after a few years. But I think we have some desire, especially for me. I have a dream to build that type of application. That's the reason my dreams comes true via the application. So I will if I cannot expand many other countries, but it will be sustained in my country. It means Nepal to some other countries, because it's limited to me in my resources, in my knowledge. I can put the many things on the application. That's the reason. So I just started to that type of project. So I think we all have those type of things. We have a born, it means we have a desire to help other people. So somehow we also understand people will love our works, and they will also want to help us. That is our assumption too.
Thanks, Rajendra. Wael, do you want to add anything?
Sorry, yeah, I mean, I'm here.
Go ahead, yeah.
I just would like to respond to the same question about sustaining our projects. I think the core way to do that is the community that we are trying to build at MTM, right? And how we can sustain that community, I think, is having the similar interest that we all have, which is covering immigration, migration, and technology. And I think it's important to always collaborate with people from other regions of the world. Like I can see, for example, the work that Veronica is doing on the application, like on the CBP application and on the borders, can be extended and maybe looked into a more of a comparative kind of study, or even like a investigation into how different governments are doing or trying to surveil or borders. So I think, yeah, I mean, one way to sustain our projects is to stay together. I mean, just because we're not officially fellows anymore doesn't mean we're not a community. And I think holding on to this community is the best way to sustain our projects in the future.
Absolutely. And, you know, I'm conscious of time, so I know we could keep this conversation going forever, but, you know, we really want to thank all of you for joining us today to learn a little bit more about the monitor, and also to, yeah, there's a question and a comment in there, kind of subverting constructs of expertise and who gets to speak on what issues. I think it's really, really important to have that as a foundational question when trying to interrogate novel kind of ideas like technology, migration, surveillance, but also using technology as a tool to support the amazing work that already goes on the ground. So really huge thanks to our current fellows. We have learned so much with you and from you this past year, and absolutely, you're not going anywhere. We're going to find a way to keep you around the MTM. We do have a new cohort starting with us soon, so please stay tuned for that announcement and do keep up with our work. We are slowly trying to build up our social media presence. I don't think we'll ever get to Rajendra's level, but we're trying. And there's going to be some really exciting work coming out in the next few months. So, and thank you to Mozilla for giving us this opportunity to share work, and to our funders for support, and for the Refugee Law Lab, giving me a home a few years ago to start this work. So thank you very much to you all.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Thanks all.